Hey everybody, how's it going today? Hope you're doing well. I want to start off by apologizing for my voice. I'm not exactly sure how noticeable it is, but I am sick as a dog this week and really did not want to be posting anything. I was hoping I'd feel better by now, but I'm just really run down. But this lesson is still really good, and it's something I wanted to share, and I'm trying to be consistent with this, so sickness or no, here we are. Hopefully it's not too distracting. Some people say they can't notice it, so it might just sound worse in my head than it actually does out loud. But anyways, this lesson that I want to talk to you about today is something that was really profound to me when I first heard it. And I actually heard it from Jordan Peterson. I actually saw him in Cincinnati this past week, and he always does a really good job. I really enjoy his lectures. But this thing that he was talking about, particularly regarding the story of Abraham pleading with God over the fate of Sodom, was something that I've never drawn out of the text before. And so it's something that I wanted to share because I think it can be helpful for all of us. Now, many of you are probably familiar with this story. Essentially, God comes to Abraham and lets him know that he's planning on destroying the city of Sodom for its sins. And Abraham looks out across the city with him and knows that his kinsman Lot is there. And he thinks, man, I think there's good people there. I mean, my kinsman among them, and I don't want to see it destroyed, or I don't want to see those good people destroyed. And so he begins pleading with God, and he says, God, would you destroy all the righteous with the wicked? What if there were 50 people there that were righteous? Would you still destroy them along with all the people who've committed sins? And it's worth keeping in mind that God doesn't say, I'm just going to destroy the city. He actually says, I'm going to go and survey the city and see whether the sins that have been reported to me, essentially, are accurate and true. So he's going to go take stock of what the city has done and survey it for himself, which already shows a level of mercy from God, a level of attentiveness, I think, that we can respect. It's not just I believe God knows what is going on in the city, but he's still going to give it the benefit of the doubt and go into that city and speak with the people and try and glean goodness to see what he might be able to spare. But Abraham is still pretty nervous. I mean, he is aware of Sodom. He's aware of their sins potentially. He's in pretty close proximity to them, and Lot does live there, so maybe they have some communication as well. But he pleads with God, if there's 50 righteous, would you destroy those righteous along with the wicked? And so Abraham's mindset here is to spare the righteous. He's not exactly trying to spare the entire city. And I think this is worth bearing in mind because we also get a hint at God's mercy as well, because God replies, if I find at Sodom 50 righteous in the city, I will spare the whole place for their sake. It's not just I will take that 50 out of the city and spare them. He's saying I'll spare the entire city. And Abraham pushes a little bit further. Well, what if of those 50, 5 of them weren't so good? Would you still spare the city with 45 in mind? So Abraham is still kind of pleading with God, like, what's the minimum amount of righteous people that you would consider, sparing if you found the rest of the city to be evil and wicked, just as was reported to you? And he gets God all the way down to 10 people. Now, the lesson that I've always taken from this is that God is merciful, right? That he's not going to judge the entire city in one fell swoop. He's actually going to look on an individual basis. And I've always kind of had a problem because this is the lesson I've taken away, that God looks at the individual and he judges them, not just an entire city or just an entire people group, but then it only gets down to 10. As a person living in this more like individualistic Western society, I want Abraham to push him to just asking about one person. God, if there were one righteous person in that city, would you destroy that person along with all the wicked in the city? And I want God in his infinite mercy to be a God who spares the one, because he sees value in that one. He sees worth in that one, and that life is worth preserving, even if all the rest have gone astray. But Abraham doesn't get all the way down to just one. And I think the point with this is that God is talking about not sparing an individual or even a couple of individuals, but sparing an entire city based on a few individuals. So essentially what he's saying, that Jordan Peterson kind of drew out in his lecture, is that if there are 10 righteous in the city, then the city can be spared because even that 10 righteous can be worked with to redeem the city. And this elevates the status of the individual. It elevates the status of the small group, because even with 10 in a large city like Sodom, it's enough that God can work with it to kind of infiltrate righteousness and goodness all throughout the rest of it. He can kind of pull up the city by its bootstraps by virtue of these 10 people. What he says is, if there's 10 people, I can save the city with just those 10. And so not only is this an important way to read this story, because we need to really understand what's being said and what's not being said, but it's also an elevation not only of God's mercy, but the amount of incredible work he can do through so few people. And this is true about God. We see it all throughout the Bible, right? At the first Pentecost, there's 120 people that receive the Spirit of God. And yet thousands upon thousands are baptized after that. And from that moment, Christianity has grown into what it is today. It's never died out. It's never failed. That flame has always been lit, because God can do a lot with a little. He can do incredible, redeeming things with such a small amount of people. Think of the widow's mite. We offer things to God. We give our tithes, we give our offerings, and it's not much. But God is not concerned with amount. He can do a lot through a little. What he needs is willingness, willing hearts, faithful hearts, willing to be used by him. And this is the lesson of Sodom and Gomorrah. The lesson is not that God is merciful when he finds a few people. God would be merciful even if there was just one in Sodom to save. He would save that one. I have full faith and confidence in that. But what's amazing is that if he finds just 10, he can save the entire city alive. Not just the 10 righteous, but all the wicked as well. Think of Jonah, one righteous man, and even his righteousness is coming into question because, he's really not willing to go and save these people or do God's work on his behalf. But even one man going and preaching repentance in the right way, in God's way, is enough to save the city of Nineveh alive. So what more could God do with 10 in Sodom? This is the lesson of Sodom and Gomorrah that I think we need to draw out and remember our own importance in God's eyes. Yes, he sees us, and when we are righteous before him, when we are obedient out of love to him, he appreciates that and can do amazing things with us. But it's not just that he cares about us and isn't going to destroy us for the sake of other people's wickedness. It's that when we are righteous before him, which, we can't really be righteous, it's only on behalf of Christ that we are righteous, but when we are obedient and loving before him, he can do incredible things through us. So we need to remember that so that we don't squander our opportunities. It is so important in an unrighteous world to remain righteous, to remain close to God, even if it's just you, like it was with Elijah, or like it was with Jonah in Nineveh, or like it is with these 10 in the city of Sodom that actually weren't even found anyways. But the point is, the righteous are important because through the righteous, God can do amazing things to save the unrighteous. And that is his goal all along. Not judgment on the unrighteous, but salvation of those unrighteous. And how incredible is it that he wants to use us to work in partnership to be able to accomplish that amazing end goal. So I hope this lesson is something maybe new for you to consider, a new lens to look at this story through. I think it's an important one that not only elevates the mercy of God, but reframes this story in the correct context and also elevates our worth in his eyes and the amount of amazing work he can do through us if we are willing and obedient participants in his will.